Hello, everyone. I hope everybody's doing good. Today, we're going to do a simple drawing of an eye. Okay? So, um, some of you have asked me to do body parts, and I want to make sure that we get to do one. And what's more important than the eye? The eye is the first thing that we see from anyone that we looked at, and we see hundreds of them throughout the day. They're very expressive. They're very important, and they're very different from each other. Okay, so I want to make sure one of the things very important I want to make sure is that you understand that every eye is very different from anyone. So the eye that we're gonna draw, you could practice and replicate it, but it doesn't mean that when you do a face, it has to have to be that eye. You will have to, when you draw, adapt the parts that we learn how to do to the characteristics of that person. Okay. So yeah, eyes are very important. I'll be talking more about it. Okay. All you need is a simple sheet of paper and pencils, regular pencils, those yellow pencils that we have around. Just make sure that they have the number 2 on them. That's the darkness that we need. I have a bunch of them sharpened, so that will help me. Once I need to sharpen one, all I have to do is pick up another pencil because it's already ready, so it saves time. So I'm gonna do many small eyes very quickly, so we could practice the shape of it, and then we're gonna do in the big part of the video a bigger eye with much more detail. And to be honest, you can make an eye and spend hours in it and put much more detail. But we're gonna give it as much detail as we can in this time, okay? But for now, let's do many small ones, and then talk about the parts and draw. So the eye, make sure your eraser is not like dry or solid. That is a good eraser, right? So we could start with making a small circle. That will be our the what holds the iris, or the entire eye, the part that we see in color, not the entire eye, but the part in color. And I'm doing the arc that goes over, and this arc is a curved arc that has to go over. This is very important. Has to go over the top of it. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is the top of that circle has to be a little bit covered. Okay, our upper eyelid covers our eye more than our lower eyelid. I mean, you can see that within yourself when you open your eyes. So that's what we're showing. I cover my eye a tiny bit on the top, and then I let it rest at the bottom. It has to just touch at the bottom, and then the bottom eyelid curves a little. We're gonna do this again. Okay, so now I'm doing the line that is the fold of the upper eyelid. Okay, and there we have the basic eye. I'm now doing let's try a bigger one. Look, I'm doing a bigger circle. We're gonna do this a couple of times, and then you see I'm marking the part where my curve of my upper eyelid will cover that top part. Just a bit will be covered. This is very important. Otherwise, if you do show your entire iris, it's okay, we do that, but it will mean that you are the eye is scared or surprised. We do show our entire iris when we are surprise or scare. So I did the bottom curve, and now I'm doing the top fold, which is an angle line and then a curve line. You see, this is the curve line, and towards the left I just did a diagonal line, so it's not an entirely curve, just like the one right under it. So I'm going over it very quickly. I went over it to make it a little darker, and now I'm doing, let's see, I'm marking the parts where you see, I want to emphasize that the bottom is just touching and the top needs to be a tiny little bit covered. Okay, a little bit covered by the upper eyelid and resting on the lower eyelid. And then I mark a curve that's close up the actual entire ball of the eye. And then we have the upper eyelid, right, that fold, emphasize the upper eyelid. And then let's see what else we have. We have we will have obviously the lower eyelid. I'll mark that in a moment. But look at the shape. Draw it again if you have to. Go to your third one if you need to draw it again. I'll do another one smaller. But what I'm doing right now is the pupil. Okay, that's a smaller circle inside our circle. This is very crucial. This is what dilates, meaning it becomes bigger or smaller as we focus or pay attention to something, or the light, when the light hits our eye, it will become smaller, and it will become bigger when we try to look into the dark. So that's the pupil, that's the small little circle. And then the iris is what surrounds that pupil. So when people say, oh, you have brown eyes or you have green eyes, they're basically describing the iris. Okay, the iris is what we describe is the color of your eye. And then some other parts of the eye. Okay, we will learn that we don't want to keep whatever is white on our eye. We may want to shadow it a little, not to make it too white. So the eye that we're gonna do in a moment will be shaded, which will make it more and more realistic. Okay. So you could pause at any time the video. Remember, you can go back. You could do hundreds of eyes before we do our last one if you wish. I want to make sure that this is a video and you see these are the parts of the eye. So you could pause it like right about here, because I'm putting it closer to you. Okay. But the more you practice doing that shape, the more you will get better at doing eye. I'm doing another one here. I start with the circle, right? I do the bottom that is kind of curvy. Okay, then I do the top arc that goes over a tiny little bit on the top. Then I do the fold. Okay, and now I'm shading. I'm making the lines darker. I did my pupil, and we could always darken. You will learn that you want to darken the right side of the upper and lower eyelid. You see, like I'm doing right now. I'm erasing the excess of our circle, so you can actually see how the upper eyelid covers the eye. And now you see how I'm darkening only the right side of our arc, and I'll do that again at the bottom. So what that actually means, even though you can not see it, is eyelashes. Okay, so we have eyelashes, and they tend to, well, don't tend, they always concentrate towards the farther away from the nose side. Okay, I shaded a little bit towards the nose, and I'm doing some eyelashes just to emphasize that. And because of that, just because of that, the eye becomes a little more feminine. Okay, so man has eyelashes, obviously, but when we draw or illustrate, things, unfortunately or fortunately, emphasize themselves more than reality, and eyelashes is one of them. Okay, so if you want to make a cartoon, a female cartoon, to make it look like a female or girl, all you have to do is add eyelashes. You may add a bow on the hair, but yeah, so that's an eye, you see. And we'll do a more realistic eye in a moment, bigger. But I have 3 eyes here. You could have done 5, 6, 7. We're just practicing and getting that basic shape. This is very important. I've done many, many, many eyes. I want to make sure that you do as many as possible. And again, this is looking at an eye straight at you. Okay, this will be the left eye of someone, right? It will be towards our right, but it will be the left eye in someone's face, looking straight at them. There's ways to draw the eye when you look at it from a profile, which means from the side, but this is straight on. Okay, practice your eyes, keep doing eyes. I know in the past we did videos of the ears and nose, but let's emphasize here just one video about the eye, and I'll tell you tips on how you could create art out of this. Okay, so let's see what I'm making now. Some lines that go towards our pupil, and those lines are in the iris. Those are actually the lines that are between the color of the eye. And now I'm darkening our circle. This is very important too. So I'm shading the eye, the main part of the eye. Our pupil will always be very dark. Okay, make sure you always do the pupil, which is the circle in the center, dark, black, or whatever color you're using that's darker. Shade around the circle, and now shade from the top to the bottom, because our upper eyelid is casting a shadow. Okay, it's very important to understand that our upper eyelid, I'm going to say it again, is casting a shadow on our eye, and that's our eye. I will leave some bubbles towards that top part, like a white circle or 2, and those are meant to be a light reflection. It's very important. Those will be an eye reflection of the light in the room or the sun, or but it's very important. And you see that also in when people draw or paint people, they always put an eye a light source reflected on the eye. So keep that in mind. That makes it extremely more realistic and much more impressive. So now I'm doing my upper arc, my bottom curve, eyelid, and now I'm gonna do in the middle, right there, my circle. The top is not finished because it's always hidden, remember? And that's it. Let's make another one. Upper eyelid curve, lower eyelid like a wavy curve, and then our circle hidden at the top, remember? and my fold of my upper eyelid. You know, something I'm not gonna do here, but I could have done, but I'll talk to you later, is our eyebrow. You know, I'm not gonna do the eyebrow, and this again is the eye on the left of someone's face. If you're gonna do the eye on the right side, you will have to invert what we just did. So basically, you have an upper eyelid, and then the bottom will be flipped. The curve of the bottom will be going towards the other side. Okay. So, by the way, if you have only one sheet of paper, you could use the other side. But I forgot to say, I apologize, that we need a second sheet of paper to do our big eye. Okay, our final big eye. So we needed 2 pieces of paper. So get ready, get your pencils, your paper, have your eraser close by, your pencil sharpener close by, and let's see, we are going to start. Make sure your piece of paper is also clean, because we're gonna shade our eye. We're gonna shade it. Okay. Again, you could watch this video again in the future and pause it where you want to. I'm starting with our curve of the upper eyelid. It's a wide curve, and I'm starting very slow and light, but then I emphasize so we can all see it. You see, now we can see it. It's a broad, wide upper eyelid. Then we do our under lower eyelid, sorry, and it will be curvy. Remember, it will do like a little curve. It has a large curve that loops and ends on the other end. So it goes. That's what makes it the left eye, because the thicker, you see, the thicker curve is towards our right, and that makes it the left eye of someone. But if I were to make the big curve on the other side and make the loop at the other end, then the eye goes to the other side. Okay, so I'm making that big loop here to the right, but then towards the left, you see how it kind of at the bottom of the left, it's gonna go up a little and then down, up or equal, either up or equal, and then down to then loop. It's a different type of curve. Whoop, right there. But the big chunk you see is to the right, and that makes it the eye of the left of the person face. To the person, but we're looking on the right. This is the fold of the upper eyelid. So it's a diagonal line, goes up, and then I start my curve above the previous curve. So basically you do an upper curve, but then towards the left you do a diagonal line. Okay. It's very important that you line up the ends of where the curves do connect. So if you notice where the two curves connect on either side, if you draw a straight line, they will meet more likely. Straight, flat. If you curve it a little bit, more likely will be curved downwards towards the left, and the person will have their eyes a little angle, which is beautiful. It's normal, and I've seen many people like that. Makes it very interesting. They angle down, towards the nose. Okay, I gave a little hint of a curve at the bottom. Now we're looking at a bigger eye, okay? We're drawing a bigger eye. So I made a suggestion of a fold on the lower eyelid, but it's very extremely light. I'm making a curve here to the left, emphasizing the close-up of the eyeball, and then I made two little circles in that cavity, where is the lack, where we cry, that's where our tears come out from. So if that eye was to cry, the liquid will come out of that gland that's there. There's a difference from those tears of emotions and tears of peeling onions, which is your eye trying to protect itself, basically, and creating more moisture. So when scientists take that liquid, there's a difference in the chemistry composition of tears and tears from onions cutting and tears of emotional crying. So as you can see, I'm making the circle. This is a big circle this time. The top is hidden. You see, the top is hidden by the upper eyelid, and the bottom is resting. So this is the normal, this is looking at a normal eye. If I were to hide this circle, hide it, like with my eyelids, that only means that I may be sleepy, I'm almost closing my eyes. So, this drawing just represents a normal looking eye. Again, if you show the entire circle, the person will be showing surprise or fear. I'm cleaning a little bit of the extra lines. I went over my lines to make them darker. It's okay because we're going to shade all this with our finger and pencil, but this is basically the basis of the eye. Okay, so right now what you're looking at is the eye without its pupil, yes, without the iris, emphasized, without eyelashes, sure, but is the basic shape. And now I'm gonna make my pupil. You see, it's a very small. Make sure this is right in the center of the circle, which will mean that it's closer to the upper eyelid. You see, because it's part of the circle is hidden. Okay. These circles that I just did are the reflection that I spoke about, that we're gonna not touch with the pencil, because we want them to be like lighter. Okay. So the two little circles I did at the top are reflection, and then I make a little curve right here at the left corner, to emphasize the gland right there, right, kind of bulbs. Let's see. We have our pupil, which is going to be entirely dark. We have I'm erasing how my paper gets a little dirty because of my my fingers maybe, and I'm emphasizing that for the shading. Okay, make sure that for the shading that we're gonna use our finger, you put your pencil in a very angle. Okay, you see, I just shaded with my finger, but before I shaded with my finger, I rub my pencil very lightly on its side. Okay, We want to, you see, it's on the side. So all that part is going to be shaded. And what the finger does is smooth. It makes the whole graphite be more smoothly. Make sure your finger is dry. It's not sweaty, oily. If this touches liquid, the paper, you're not going to be able to get rid of that. Even if you dry it, the paper will have got a different texture, and then the pencil in it is different. So I'm shading around, shading. I could put more darkness if I wish. Just explore that. You could take a piece of paper on the side and shade with your finger and make with your finger, sorry, and make some things darker than others, lighter, make lines. But this is very, very smooth shading, meaning the transition from the white of the paper to the pencil should be very smooth. I'm leaving a little gap. Did you see that? I'm leaving a gap between the lower eyelid and my shading. And that's very important because that gap is where our eyelashes will go, okay? Our eyelashes at the bottom will go there because we can actually see where they're coming from. Usually from the top, that's hidden, looking down. And now I'm emphasizing a little more darker. Okay, I'm putting more pencil in the in our upper eyelid. So our upper eyelid is getting a little more darker towards the top. A little more darker right at the curve. You see how I'm emphasizing the darkness right at the line? You see, right at the line, and then it shades out, or it blends out of that. So basically, the line that was defining the fold disappear, and now it's not a line anymore. It's just a blending of a darker area coming out, because that's really what it is. Our upper eyelid, it is a bump, it's sticking out like a circle. You could touch it. Be careful. Eyelids, this is a fact, eyelids are one of the most thin, the thinnest, is the thinnest skin. So when you look at your body skin, the skin of your body, your eyelids are the most skinny part, very, very delicate. You got to be careful and yeah. So now with my eraser, the eraser here will be a tool. I use my eraser always most likely like a tool. You could erase when you go over an area and then go back and shade. Okay, so if you went over something or pass over something or need to make get rid of something, you could always erase. So now I'm shading on top of our upper eyelid, right? Because that's still the skin, and this is why I'm not doing the eyebrow, but the eyebrow will be right above there. I could make another video putting two eyes together, and I don't know, the bridge of the nose, and then I'll focus on the eyebrow. But here I wanted to focus just on the eye. And right here you see how I'm shading again, but I'm leaving a gap. I'm giving and I will use my eraser to make sure that gap is a little more light. But I'm shading a lot more towards the corner, because the corner goes down, okay? That corner right there goes down. And I'm gonna even show you how in the skin towards the right of this eye, there's a bump, there's an upper bump of the bone, the bone of our skull. It's a little bumpy right there. So when you shade, you want to kind of emphasize that too. And you can see that on portraits of paintings. And I keep shading, making that transition right there somewhat smoothly. But the fold of the upper lid has to be clearly darker, okay? But I'm emphasizing the upper left. If you see, I'm darkening the upper left a lot, because that's where our eye is kind of like buried, If you look at your eye socket, where it really buries itself down, it's closer to your nose. So when you touch your eye towards, outside of your face, towards your ear, it kind of comes out, into the surface. But right at the nose, the opposite, it buries itself, that edge right there. And that's what emphasizes the bridge of the nose. So if you saw me darkening the left side, that's because of the bridge of the nose. So now I'm darkening the other side, the right, and that's to make it even with the rest of the skin, you see. And this is the bump I'm talking about. It kind of looks like exclamation mark, thicker at the top, thinner at the bottom. But what that really just represents is the skull. If you touch your eye right there, you can feel how your skull, the eye socket of your skull, you could actually feel it, and it's pronounced there. So when you look at paintings of portraits, Renaissance paintings or things like that, they emphasize that. They were very aware of the anatomy of the human body. And if it looks a little weird for you, don't worry, because your eyebrow, in reality, the eyebrow will be covering some of that. The eyebrow goes right on top of the upper eyelid and towards that end. So don't worry about it. But yeah, as I shade it around, I shade it with a purpose. You could shade, if you want, you could just go and shade, and then with your eraser, erase the parts that you see lighter on the video. Now I'm shading inside our eye. This is what I meant by that we don't want to keep our eye completely white like the paper. So I'm shading on the top, because as I keep emphasizing, our eyelid is casting a shadow. Okay, our eyelid is more pronounced than the actual eyeball, so it casts a shadow, and the understanding is that the light source is coming from a little bit above. Okay, in this case it's a little bit above towards the right, because of the circles and reflections that you're gonna see in a moment. But this darkening right now, this shading that I'm doing right here at the top, is shadow casted by the upper eyelid, which really means that the light source is coming from above, right? So if you represent somebody with a flashlight pointing up, that will not be the case, right? It will be a different representation, and kind of looks scary. So if you look at scary pictures of people's faces, sometimes the light source is opposite to what we're expecting. If not, go to the mirror, grab a flashlight, turn off the light, and then put the flashlight or your phone flashlight going up towards your face. It looks scary. It looks scary because it is the opposite to what we're used to. Normally we look at our light source from the top. Now I'm shading a little bit the edges, and what this does, the corner left and right, what this does basically is makes the eyeball round. So it's an eyeball, right? So it's going to be round. It's not flat. So part of the roundness is the curves of our eyelid, and part of the roundness will be this shading that I just did in the corners. Especially, you see how the right corner is a little darker on the bottom. I'm just darkening here to show that little bump on the gland that we cry. So I'm leaving a gap, and that gap between that shadow and the eye shows a bump. It's like a bump of skin. That's all it is. So I didn't put the shadow right close to it because then I don't have that bump of skin. So now I'm using the side of my pencil. There's a circle there and there's a circle there. You see that? And I'm gonna darken my pupil entirely, all dark. But I'm not gonna go over those two circles on the top. You see that I just drew. Those two circles are only mean the light reflection, the light source. It could have been one to the right or to the left. Doesn't matter. What matters, it will represent where the light source is coming from. There's two light sources. Okay, so my pupil is very dark. I started shading earlier my circle towards the edge. This is very important, okay? This right now, you need to shade the circle. Well, I'm shading everything, but the circle circumference needs to be from dark to lighter going in. And I'm going around remember the light sources? I'm going around them because I don't want to darken that, right? So this right here, that shading that I just did towards the entire iris, if I was using coloring pencils, that will be the color of my eye, green eyes or brown eyes. But in this case, we're using pencils, so it's just gray. And I'm using lines that go from the circumference towards the pupil, and those lines are important. Look at your eyes in the mirror next time you look in the mirror, and you're gonna see those lines. They're veins, they're very tiny little veins that produce the color. And now I'm going around my circle, and this is what I mean, that it's not just making the circle, it's making sure that line that I go around in the circle is dark and it fades from the circumference to the inside. Now this top part, this top here, you see, gotta be darker around our light reflections. Those two white bubbles just mean eye reflections. And I'm making all this part dark enough that is the same darkness as the pupil. Okay, this is also very important. I always emphasize the fact that the darkness of my pupil, it will be the same darkness as my upper shadow right there. That makes that shadow really crispy and dark. And this is the darkness that I was talking to you about, of the circumference. Okay, take your time, pause the video if you need to. This is what's gonna make the eye pop up. And as you can see, so eventually, very soon, you'll see how I'm gonna tone down those reflections. Okay, they're very bright right now, but we could tone it down. But I'm just going over some lines here, erasing for highlights. But you see how the eye starts coming to life, and it's very important when you draw a face to get the eyes right. The eyes will be just like in our daily life. Okay. This we do unconsciously. We look around, we say hello, but we're looking at people's eyes. If they are not okay or people are sad, we'll ask them, are you okay? I mean, we're very we're the best interpreters. Trust me. It's just we do it very unconsciously and very quickly. It's almost like in half a second. I'm darkening more and more my upper iris. I'm gonna go around my the reflections. I'm shading down. You see, this is very important. Make sure that it's shaded, that it goes from very dark to very light. Sorry, from very dark to kind of basically transition from the very dark to the other part of the iris smoothly. And that's our eye. We're missing our eyelashes, but keep playing around. You see, now I'm shading around my light reflections, but not the center. Okay, we're going around the edge of those circles. I went over it, yes, sure, but I'm sure I'm gonna go back with my eraser to make them light in the center, but towards the edge of those reflections, towards the edge around, you see, that's the center. Towards the edge, I shaded them. It's pretty strong reflections. I recommend you do another eye. Okay, after this, do another eye and do only one reflection. Do one bubble. I did 2 here, and I do some lines. You see, I make those lines in them. I went a little beyond. Okay, what those lines represent is the eyelashes that we're gonna do now. Okay, so basically we have a light reflection, but the eyelashes are actually reflecting into the eye. So as you can see, I'm taking my time, darkening my pupil, making those lines. Those it's almost like a spider web. Okay, going towards the center. And now I'm using my eraser to erase between those lines that I did going in. It's almost like from the pupil out, there's these lines that go around, kind of like a basket, weaving basket. And that is where the color of the eye will be. Okay, I'm saying it again. It's either brown, black eyes, blue eyes, or green eyes. That's what gives the color of the eye. I'm using my eraser to give some highlights opposite to where it's shaded. So you see how things become more real. And this is my being aware. You see, I'm erasing all the dirt that may be around my paper, because my pinky and my fingers are dirty in the paper. So when I draw, I may touch my drawing with my fingers, and then I touch the paper, and it dirties it. It makes it dirty. So be aware of that, or use a piece of paper. You could use another piece of paper to rest your hand. I'll demonstrate that in another video. I didn't never make that a habit, so I'm a little more rogue, but you can definitely use a piece of paper to rest your hand. And you see, you don't have to be erasing like that when your paper gets dirty. So yeah, clean your paper. Something I want to say very quickly before we do our eyelashes. This shape that we just did of the eye, you could make a painting out of it, and then paint something in it. You could paint the world. You could paint the moon as your eye, as the circle of your eye. You can paint I don't know, anything, and it will represent an eye. It will be a symbolic painting. You can make a flower, a circle flower right in the middle, and everything around be, I don't know, whatever you wish, but it will look like an eye, because you have this basic knowledge of what makes an eye. Okay. I think if something was very dark, you could erase it and go back to it, you see. But make sure you see that the circumference of your eye goes from dark, just like the shade right there on the top, but the bottom circle part of the circumference should be fading in towards the pupil, and then right there. Okay, basically what I'm trying to say is the circumference is not a thin line. Okay, don't ever make that circumference just a thin line like the edges of our eyelid. It has to be very thick, you see, because that thickness is what is from where the color of our eye comes from. Basically make your eye circumference very thick. So now I'm starting to do eyelashes. The upper eyelashes will always be longer than the lower. We have eyelashes at the bottom of our eye. And another thing is that there will be longer also towards the outside of our eye. So in this eye, the in will be towards the nose, towards the left, and out will be towards the ear, towards the right. So I'm doing very little ones, you see, to the left, and they're gonna grow bigger as I'm moving towards the right. And they should go around too. So you see the ones towards the left go in an angle, going that way, and the ones towards the right go in another angle. And it will get really angled because what happens towards the end or outside, going out, is that the eye kind of turns. So you see, and I do some basic ones. I really go a little bit over our upper eyelid on the top, the fold. I go over it a little towards the right, but I do different turns, different angles, not angles, sorry, different bends of my eyelashes. So some go very curvy, some go entangled over the others. But again, this makes that eye more female, like a woman. And actually, when a woman wears makeup and they use fake eyelashes, they obviously want to emphasize their eyes. They want you to look at them. They want to make their eyes more expressive. So eyelashes not just protect our eyes, but are beautiful, just like women's hair. They left their hair longer. These are things that are additions. You don't have to have it, but when you add them on, they add beauty on it. So eyelashes is one thing. So they put eyeshadow. They make their eyelashes darker. At the eyeliner, so the eyeliner darkens the lines where our eye rests. And obviously, if the person is very pale, or they need to emphasize that. So, there's a logic there, and we're aware of it. We're actually aware of it. So, if you draw, and you're a woman and you do makeup, then you're aware of what you're trying to do visually. So the lower eyelashes, you see, were smaller, and they came out of the that little gap. Remember, I left a gap right there that was lighter. I'm going over here darkening. And if you need to go over the lines of the eyelashes, please do, to make them thicker, you see. And then another thing I did is that I shaded, you see, I shaded very quickly that right side bottom to make sure that it's not like too bright or too light. Okay. Let's see how we're doing. That's a beautiful eye. You can agree with me that it looks like a female eye. and now I'm darkening the body of the eye. So meaning I'm not keeping the eyeball too bright, just like the paper. Okay, in some parts could be, especially towards the center maybe, but if you could shade a tiny little bit your eyeball, that would be great, because it will give it more reality. And when you paint or draw, same thing. Okay, try to avoid white, extremely white, and try to avoid extremely black. Those are very extreme colors that we could probably represent by darkening the other colors that we want to make dark, or adding black to another color. Or like I said, if this was skin, I just make the skin darker or lighter, you know. We may use the white for the reflection, you know. That will be where it's extremely more bright. Here I'm shading a lot towards the center where the nose is, you see, and I yep, because that again is where our eye kind of gets buried. So it's very dark right there in that left, that point right there will be more likely the darkest, because our nose goes from the bridge down to our eye, and there's like a big difference on depth. Okay, that's basically all that means. Upper eyelashes, lower eyelashes, you could make more eyes. And then always, remember, there's one eye. Don't memorize this. There's one eye between both eyes. So this is our eye. Look, you see those lines from the pupil to the circumference edge? That's kind of like a crystal strain lines. That's what I need you to do. So if you want, just like I raised my paper a second ago, when I do that, go back in the video and pause it. What you could do is go back and pause the video right at that point, and really pay attention to the drawing on a close-up, and keep doing eyes. Just like we started doing 5 eyes, do 10, 15, 20. Get those basic parts, and then when you look at somebody, you'll see, oh, okay, you don't have an eyelid, or your eyelid is very folded towards the top, you see. Sure, everybody's eyes are different, but there are certain things we all have. Okay. So have a great day. This was our eye. Great work. Enjoy, keep doing eyes, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great week. See you soon.